The cafe was small but cozy, tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on a quiet street. The morning sunlight filtered through the windows, hitting the polished wooden tables and making them shine. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the faint aroma of baked pastries. Behind the counter, a young woman moved with quiet grace. Her hands skilled from years of making coffee and arranging small trays of pastries for customers. She had been working at this cafe for almost 3 years, and though the job did not pay much, she found comfort in the routine and the small happiness of seeing regular customers come in with a smile. She had a gentle face, framed by hair that often fell loosely over her shoulders. Her eyes carried a calmness, but they also held a hint of something deeper, a quiet longing that she rarely shared. She was not loud or demanding of attention. Most people who came into the cafe thought of her as nothing more than the friendly barista, who always remembered how they liked their coffee. She smiled often, nodded politely, and sometimes hummed quietly as she worked, a habit that made her feel at ease and connected to the music she loved. The cafe was her world, small but filled with warmth. She loved watching the sunlight shift across the room, the way it caught on the coffee cups or the edges of the pastries. She loved the sound of the espresso machine, the hiss and gurgle that marked the start of a new day. But beneath all of this comfort, there was a part of her life that no one in the cafe truly understood. She carried a quiet passion inside her, a love for music that had been with her since she was a little girl. Though she had no formal lessons and no stage to perform on, she had learned to play the piano on a small, second-hand keyboard that her parents had bought her years ago. She spent hours at night playing simple tunes, letting her fingers dance across the keys, imagining herself performing for an audience that would feel every note she played. She had tried, once or twice, to play for others. A neighbor, a family friend, or a coworker had heard her play, and most of the time, the reactions were polite smiles and quick compliments. No one seemed to notice the depth in her music, the way she could turn even a simple melody into something that spoke from the heart. Over time, she had stopped showing her music to others, choosing instead to keep it as her secret world, something private and sacred. It was her escape from the ordinary, a way to feel alive when the days felt repetitive and slow. Her life was not without struggle. She lived in a small, rented apartment not far from the cafe, a modest space with a tiny kitchen and a window that looked out over a busy alley. The rent was high, and she often found herself counting coins at the end of the month, making sure she could pay her bills and still have enough for groceries. Sometimes she felt tired and discouraged, wondering if she would ever have a chance to turn her love for music into something more than a hobby. But she never gave up playing, not fully, because the music was a part of her that could not be silenced. Each morning, as she prepared the cafe for the day, she would quietly set her keyboard in a corner. A little out of sight of the customers, she would play for a few minutes before the rush began, simple tunes at first, just to wake up her fingers and her mind. Sometimes she added small flourishes, small expressions of feeling that no one would hear but her. The cafe became a place where her ordinary life and her secret talent could coexist peacefully. She smiled at customers, served drinks and cleaned tables, all while carrying the music inside her like a hidden treasure. On most days, she did not expect anything to change. She was content with her routine, even if it was modest. But she always held a quiet hope, a flicker of belief that someday someone might notice, the world might hear what she could do. She did not know when it would happen or how, but the thought kept her going. It was not about fame or recognition. It was about the possibility that her music could touch someone else. Even if just for a moment, the cafe had its regulars. People who came almost every day and who began to notice small things about her. They noticed the careful way she poured coffee, the attention she gave to the pastries, the tiny hums that sometimes escaped her lips when no one was listening. Some customers had tried to ask her about the humming, but she would only smile and say it was nothing, just something she liked to do. She never mentioned the keyboard or the music she played alone in the corner. It was her private world, and she cherished it. One rainy morning, the cafe was unusually quiet. The soft patter of rain against the windows created a calming rhythm. She moved slowly, almost in time with the rain, setting out cups and saucers, wiping down tables. and arranging small plates of pastries. She hummed a gentle tune, a melody she had been practicing for weeks. A piece that started simple and grew into something flowing and beautiful in her mind. As she hummed, she allowed herself a small smile, feeling the music wrap around her like a warm blanket. For a few minutes, the world outside disappeared, leaving only the notes and the quiet comfort they brought in that moment. She did not know that today her ordinary world was about to shift. She did not know that a single encounter would change the way she saw herself and the way others would see her. She continued to move through her morning routine, pouring coffee, arranging pastries, and humming softly, unaware that someone outside the cafe had noticed the melody drifting through the open door. The world for her was small and familiar, filled with the comfort of routine and the quiet beauty of music she played for no one but herself as the day went on. The cafe began to fill with more customers. Regular faces appeared, nodding greetings and exchanging small talk. She served each person with care, remembering their orders and offering polite smiles. She watched the rain continue outside, streaking down the windows, and felt a gentle peace in the simple rhythm of her day. But inside her, a quiet excitement began to stir, a feeling she could not name, a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, the music she held so close might one day be heard beyond the walls of the cafe. And though she returned to her tasks with the same calm diligence, the tiny flicker of hope remained. A light waiting for the moment it could shine. The morning continued quietly in the cafe, with the young woman moving among the tables and the counter, serving coffee and pastries with her usual calm. The hum of conversation, the clinking of cups, and the soft background music created a comfortable atmosphere for the customers. She carried on her work with care, remembering who liked extra cream in their coffee, who preferred a pastry warmed, and who liked their drinks made quickly so they could leave for work. Her attention to detail made her a favorite among regulars. But no one knew about the music she kept tucked away in the corner of the cafe. It was mid-morning when a man walked in, carrying a leather bag and wearing a smart suit that suggested he was in the world of business, or perhaps music. He looked around the cafe briefly, taking in the cozy space, then approached the counter. The young woman greeted him with a warm smile and asked what he would like. He ordered a coffee, and as she prepared it, he noticed the small keyboard she kept tucked to the side. It was the kind of keyboard that looked simple, almost unimportant, but it had a story. The man's curiosity was piqued. He had been visiting the city to explore new talent for a project he was working on. Music was his life, and he had an ear trained to notice something special, something unique in someone's playing. When he sat at a small table, the young woman returned to her work, humming a quiet tune as she wiped down counters and refilled pastries. The melody drifted through the air, gentle and unassuming, but it caught the attention of the man immediately. He stopped for a moment, letting the hum reach him fully, and realized that the melody was more than simple humming. There was emotion in it, a delicate touch, a sense of feeling that he could sense even without seeing the keyboard. His curiosity turned to fascination. He walked slowly toward the corner where the keyboard sat and observed her. Watching her fingers move almost unconsciously as she continued her small tune, she noticed him watching and paused, feeling slightly embarrassed. She had never played for a stranger before, especially not someone who looked like he knew a lot about music. "It's nothing really," she said softly, lowering her hands. "Just a little tune." The man smiled kindly, but with a spark of excitement in his eyes. "May I listen for a moment?" he asked. Her hands hesitated over the keys. She was nervous, unsure what to do. For so long, she had played only for herself, afraid that the outside world would not understand or appreciate the music she loved. Yet there was something in his manner, a genuine curiosity and encouragement that felt different. Taking a deep breath, she nodded, and her fingers touched the keys once more. The tune began simply, delicate and soft. At first, it seemed just a quiet melody, but as she played, her confidence grew, and the music began to flow with depth and feeling. She added small variations, notes that danced lightly across the keys, expressing the emotion she could never put into words. The man watched completely captivated, sensing the layers of her music, the raw talent hidden beneath the everyday routine of her life. Each note carried her heart, her struggles, her dreams, and a quiet strength that few could see in her ordinary appearance. For the young woman, playing for someone else was terrifying at first. She could feel her heart beating faster, her palms slightly sweaty. But as she continued, she realized that her music was not diminished by the presence of the stranger. Instead, it grew, gaining life and purpose. She could feel the connection forming between her and the listener. The way a melody can reach beyond words, beyond appearances, and touch something deeper inside. She forgot about the cafe, the people, the routines. There was only the music, flowing through her hands and filling the small corner of the room with sound that surprised even her when she finally paused. Taking a breath, the man remained still for a moment, processing what he had just heard. Then he clapped softly, with a genuine smile on his face. "That was incredible," he said. "I've never heard anything like it. You have real talent. Have you ever performed for others?" She shook her head, feeling shy, but also a little proud. "No, I usually just play for myself," he nodded, understanding. "Would you consider performing tonight at a small open mic event? It's a chance to share your music with others. I think people would be amazed by what you can do." She hesitated, unsure. The thought of performing in front of an audience, of having strangers watch and judge, was frightening. What if she failed? What if her music wasn't enough? Her heart raced at the idea, and for a moment she felt like running away. But then she remembered the joy she felt while playing, the connection she felt when the stranger listened. Maybe this was her chance, a small window where her music could be seen, heard, and appreciated. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "I'll try," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The man's face lit up with encouragement. "That's all I ask. Just try. You don't have to be perfect. Just play from your heart." The rest of the day passed with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. She prepared for the evening, rehearsing her simple tunes over and over in the cafe during quiet moments. She adjusted notes, added small flourishes, and felt the music becoming more alive with each repetition. Customers came and went, some noticing the faint sounds of her playing, others lost in their own world. She barely noticed them, focused entirely on the music and the thought of performing for the first time outside the safety of her private corner. As the evening approached, she left the cafe early to find the open mic venue. It was a small, dimly lit space filled with chairs, a tiny stage, and a few instruments resting in the corner. The audience was a mix of people, some casual listeners, some aspiring musicians. She could feel the nerves creeping in again, a familiar fear of being judged, of failing. But she reminded herself of the man's encouragement, the way he had listened to her music as if it was the most important thing in the world. She took a deep breath, knowing that this was a chance she could not let slip away. The host of the event called her name, and she walked onto the small stage, feeling the wooden floor beneath her feet and the bright lights shining down. She could hear the soft murmurs of the audience, their curious whispers, and she felt a pang of doubt. But she closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the music, the joy of playing, and the connection she felt when someone truly listened. With trembling hands, she touched the keys, letting the simple tune she had practiced so many times flow through her fingers. At first, the melody was soft, almost shy. But as she played, the music grew bolder, more expressive. Each note carried her story, her dreams, her fears, and her hope. The audience, initially quiet, began to lean in, captivated by the emotion and skill that seemed to pour from her so naturally. They could sense the depth of feeling behind the simple tune, the way she transformed it into something far greater than the notes themselves. Her fingers moved with surprising speed and precision, the music filling the room, wrapping around each listener and drawing them into her world. By the end of the performance, the room was silent for a heartbeat before erupting into applause. The young woman opened her eyes, surprised and overwhelmed by the response. She had done it. She had shared her music, her true self, and people had seen it, felt it, and appreciated it. The man who had first encouraged her was there, smiling proudly, and others came forward to compliment her, some with tears in their eyes from the beauty of what they had just heard. For the first time, She realized that her music, the simple tunes she had always played in private, had the power to touch others, to surprise them, and to open doors she had never dreamed of. That night, as she walked home, her heart was light, filled with a sense of possibility she had never known. She knew the journey was just beginning, but the fear that had held her back for so long had been replaced with a quiet confidence. She had discovered that her music could reach beyond herself, that the world might hear and be moved by what she had kept hidden for so long. And with that thought, she felt a small but powerful spark of hope, the kind that could grow into something beautiful if nurtured with courage and determination. The next morning, the young woman woke up with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The memory of last night's performance lingered in her mind, a vivid blend of joy and disbelief. She had done something she had never imagined she could, and yet a new challenge awaited her. The producer had invited her to a more formal showcase the following evening, a chance to perform in front of a larger audience, including people who had experience in the music industry. The thought was thrilling, but also terrifying. She had never played for such a crowd before, and the fear of making a mistake weighed heavily on her. She spent the day preparing, revisiting her pieces and practicing tirelessly on her small keyboard at the cafe during breaks. Each note felt more alive, more expressive, as she experimented with variations and flourishes. She remembered the encouraging words of the producer, the way he had listened with genuine attention, and that gave her courage. She wanted to do more than just play the notes. She wanted to convey the emotion she carried inside her, to reach the audience in a way that would make them feel the music as deeply as she did. When she arrived at the showcase venue that evening, her nerves returned with full force. The room was larger than any she had been in before, with rows of chairs, bright stage lights, and an audience that was noticeably more serious. She could see other performers, some adjusting instruments, others practicing last-minute notes. They moved with the confidence of people accustomed to being on stage, and she felt a pang of insecurity. Could she, a simple cafe worker with no formal training, really stand alongside them and make an impression? Backstage, she tried to calm herself, taking deep breaths and stretching her fingers. She closed her eyes and recalled the comfort of her music and the quiet of the cafe, the way the melodies seemed to flow naturally when no one was watching. She reminded herself that she had a gift, that her music could touch people in a way that went beyond technique or experience. The producer came to her side, offering a reassuring smile. "Remember," he said softly, "play from your heart. That is what will make them listen." His words were a gentle anchor, and she nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. When it was her turn, she walked onto the stage, feeling the weight of the audience's gaze and the bright lights shining down on her. The wooden floor beneath her feet felt solid, yet the fear inside made it seem unsteady. She took her place at the piano, feeling the cool surface of the keys beneath her fingers. For a moment she hesitated, imagining the audience as faceless critics, ready to point out every flaw. Her heart raced, and she wondered if she could truly meet their expectations. Then, she remembered the simple joy of playing, the way the music had always been a part of her, a language she understood completely. She let go of her fears and allowed her fingers to find the keys, starting with a soft, simple melody. The opening notes were quiet and unassuming, a gentle invitation rather than a bold statement. The audience listened politely, some nodding, some tapping their fingers lightly on the armrests, but none seemed particularly moved yet. She felt a flicker of doubt, wondering if she had made a mistake in agreeing to perform. As she continued, the music began to evolve. Her fingers moved with increasing confidence, weaving the simple melody into more complex patterns, adding variations that expressed the emotion she had carried for so long. The notes flowed with a natural rhythm, rising and falling like the gentle waves of a calm sea. She could feel the music filling the room, reaching the audience in ways that words could not. People leaned forward, drawn into the sound, sensing the depth of feeling behind each note. The room, once filled with polite indifference, began to quiet, every ear attentive, every heart open to the unexpected beauty of her performance. She closed her eyes, letting herself feel the music fully. Each chord, each flourish, was a piece of her story, a fragment of her life, and her dreams. She remembered the lonely nights spent practicing, the quiet moments when no one was around to listen, and the small, private victories when a tune finally sounded the way she imagined. Now all of that effort, all of that love for the music, was being shared with people who had never known her. And as she played, she realized that the music was no longer just for her. It belonged to anyone willing to listen and feel its message. The audience was completely captivated. The room, filled with seasoned performers and music enthusiasts, was silent except for the sound of the piano. No coughs, no shuffling, no whispered comments. They were held in the spell of her performance, unable to look away or think about anything else. Every note she played carried her presence, her dedication, her courage. People could sense the journey she had taken, the struggles she had overcome, and the quiet strength that had allowed her to step onto the stage despite her fears. Minutes passed like seconds as she continued to play, lost in the flow of music. Her fingers moved with surprising speed and precision, yet each movement was filled with emotion, never mechanical or forced. She experimented with tempo, dynamics, and touch, feeling the response of the audience and the subtle changes in their posture and expressions. Some had tears in their eyes, others wore stunned expressions, but all were listening with full attention. She felt a connection forming, invisible yet undeniable, a bridge between her heart and those of the listeners. As the final notes lingered in the air, she allowed herself to breathe, a soft smile appearing on her face. She opened her eyes and looked at the audience, waiting for a reaction. The silence hung for a moment, a fragile pause that made her heart pound. Then, slowly, the room erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, a wave of appreciation that seemed to come from every corner of the venue. People were on their feet, clapping and cheering, some whistling and shouting words of admiration. The young woman felt a rush of emotions, relief, joy, pride, and disbelief all at once. She had done it. She had shared her music with the world and had been heard, really heard. For the first time, the producer came to the stage, smiling widely and offering a heartfelt congratulations. Others approached as well, musicians and listeners alike, praising her talent and asking about her background. She was overwhelmed by the attention, but in a good way. For the first time, she realized that the fears and doubts she had carried for so long were no longer barriers. The music she had always considered simple and private had the power to move people, to create connections and to open doors she had never imagined. After the performance, she left the stage and walked through the backstage area, still in a daze from the experience. Other performers congratulated her, some with curiosity, some with genuine admiration. She could hear snippets of conversation, people discussing her skill, the emotion in her playing, and the unexpected beauty of her music. She smiled, a quiet but deep satisfaction settling in her chest. She had faced her fear, shared her talent, and had been met with acceptance and awe. Later that night, she returned to her small apartment. She reflected on the journey she had taken. From the quiet hours in the cafe to the nerve-wracking moment on stage, she had discovered something profound. Music was not just a hobby or a private escape. It was a language, a bridge, and a source of strength. She realized that her life could be transformed by the courage to share her gift, and that the simplest tunes, when played with heart and dedication, could become something truly extraordinary. And as she sat by her window, looking at the city lights and thinking about the future, she felt a quiet but powerful hope, knowing that this was only the beginning of her journey. After the performance, the young woman was both exhilarated and overwhelmed. She had stepped onto a stage full of experienced performers and had shared her music in a way she never thought possible. The applause and cheers still echoed in her ears, and she felt the warmth of genuine admiration all around her. Backstage, people were talking, smiling, and asking questions about her. And for the first time, she realized the full impact of what she had just done. Her simple tunes, played with honesty and emotion, had captured the attention of a room full of people who had been expecting nothing extraordinary. The producer who had first encouraged her came up to her, a proud smile on his face. "You were amazing," he said. "I knew you had talent, but tonight you surprised even me." Do you know what you have just done? People will remember this performance for a long time. You have something special, something rare. She smiled shyly, still feeling a little unsure. I just played what I felt, she said quietly. I didn't think anyone would really notice. He shook his head. No, they noticed. They felt it. That's what makes music powerful. It's not just the notes. It's the heart behind them. You have a gift that goes beyond technique or training. You can touch people's lives, and tonight you did just that. As she looked around, she saw others approaching. A music teacher from a nearby school complimented her on her technique and expression. A small group of young musicians wanted to know how she had learned to play without formal lessons. Even a local journalist took notes, intending to write a piece about the surprise star of the evening. She was astonished. People were genuinely interested in her story, in her music, and in her life. For the first time, she felt seen, not just as a barista or a quiet young woman, but as someone with talent, with something meaningful to share with the world. The excitement continued after the showcase. Invitations began to arrive for small performances, private events, and even collaborations with other musicians. Each new opportunity was a mix of excitement and fear. She had never imagined herself performing in front of more than a few people. And now she was being asked to step into a world she had only dreamed about. Yet, with each invitation, she felt her confidence grow. She remembered the first time she played in the cafe, the simple joy of music filling the quiet room. And she realized that the same feeling could extend beyond her private world. The music could travel, reach others, and create experiences that went beyond her imagination. That week, she spent hours practicing and refining her pieces. Learning to balance technical skill with emotional expression, she worked on small details she had never noticed before, experimenting with timing, dynamics, and touch. Her keyboard, once a quiet companion in the corner of the cafe, became her instrument of growth, helping her expand her talent in ways she had not known were possible. Each day, she felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment she had never experienced. Music was no longer just a personal escape. It was a bridge connecting her to others, a language through which she could communicate feelings and stories that words alone could not convey. One afternoon, she received a message from a local music academy, inviting her to attend a workshop with professional musicians. They had heard about her performance and were eager to see what she could learn with guidance. She felt a rush of excitement and nervousness. The idea of learning from professionals was intimidating, but it also felt like a validation of everything she had worked for in silence. She accepted the invitation, realizing that this could be another step in her journey, a chance to grow and to share her music with a wider audience. The day of the workshop arrived, and she found herself in a room filled with talented musicians. Each with years of experience and formal training, she initially felt out of place, unsure if she belonged among them. But as the session began, she focused on the music and let herself play freely. Her natural talent, combined with the emotion she brought to every note, drew attention and admiration from the instructors. They encouraged her to experiment, to take risks, and to trust her instincts. She realized that her music, which had always been personal and private, could evolve in new directions, influenced by collaboration and guidance. Throughout the workshop, she noticed how people responded to her music. There was curiosity, amazement, and sometimes even disbelief that someone without formal training could play with such depth and expression. Each compliment, each piece of advice, and each interaction strengthened her confidence and fueled her desire to continue. She felt a growing sense of purpose, understanding that her talent could not only bring joy to herself, but also inspire and move others. After the workshop, she returned to her apartment, exhausted but filled with inspiration. She sat by her window, reflecting on how much her life had changed in such a short time. From playing quietly in a cafe, unnoticed and unappreciated, she had moved into a world where people saw her talent, valued her music, and wanted to support her growth. The realization was overwhelming and beautiful. She understood that her journey was just beginning, that there would be challenges and moments of doubt. But she also knew that her music had power, and that she had the courage to follow it in the days that followed. The invitations and opportunities continued. She performed at small gatherings, local events, and even informal concerts, each time feeling more comfortable and more confident in her ability to connect with an audience. Her simple tunes, once confined to the quiet corners of the cafe, had transformed into performances that captivated and inspired. She was beginning to see the world not just as a place of routine and struggle, but as a space where her music could create change, evoke emotion, and touch lives in ways she had never imagined. With each performance, she discovered something new about herself and her music. She learned to balance vulnerability with skill, to trust her instincts, and to embrace the power of simplicity. She realized that the beauty of her music lay not in its complexity, but in its honesty and emotional resonance. The audience responded not to technical perfection, but to the heart and soul she poured into every note. This understanding became her guiding principle, shaping the way she approached each new opportunity and each new piece she played as the weeks passed. Her life transformed in ways she could scarcely have imagined. People she had never met recognized her, approached her with admiration, and expressed curiosity about her story. She was invited to collaborate with other musicians, to participate in workshops, and even to perform at events that reached a wider audience. Yet, despite all the attention and recognition, she remained grounded. Remembering the quiet moments in the cafe where her music had begun, she understood that her journey was not just about performance or recognition, but about staying true to herself and the music that had always been her companion. One evening, after returning from a successful performance, she sat at her keyboard, reflecting on the journey so far. The room was quiet, lit only by a soft lamp that cast a warm glow on the keys. She played a simple tune, the same melody that had first captured attention months ago, and felt a sense of connection and continuity. The music reminded her of where she had started, the fears she had overcome, and the possibilities that lay ahead. She understood that her talent was not just a gift, but a responsibility, a way to bring beauty and emotion into the world. As she played, she felt a quiet determination growing within her. She would continue to perform, to learn, and to share her music with those willing to listen. She knew there would be challenges and setbacks, but she also knew that her passion, courage, and authenticity would guide her. Her simple tunes had become a force that could surprise, inspire, and move others, and she was ready to embrace the journey fully. With each note, she reaffirmed her commitment to music, to growth, and to the power of sharing her gift with the world. After months of performing at small events, workshops, and private gatherings, the young woman began to notice a remarkable change in her life. The once ordinary days spent behind the cafe counter now felt like a distant memory. Though they had been the foundation of her journey, she had grown more confident in herself and her abilities, and her music had become a bridge connecting her to people she never would have imagined meeting. Each performance reinforced the truth she had discovered, that genuine emotion and dedication could move hearts in ways that fame or technique alone could not. She started receiving invitations to perform at larger venues, including community halls and cultural events. She met other musicians, each bringing unique perspectives and skills, and learned from them while sharing her own experiences. Her music, which had begun as simple tunes in the quiet corners of a cafe, now resonated with a wider audience. People appreciated her, not only for her technical skill, but for the honesty and emotion behind each note. She realized that the simplicity of her compositions was her strength, allowing the heart of the music to shine through without distraction. Despite her growing success, she remained humble and grounded. She never forgot the countless hours she had spent alone at her small keyboard, practicing and perfecting her craft in the quiet moments when no one was watching. Those private hours had been her foundation, teaching her patience, resilience, and the importance of believing in herself. Now, when she performed on stage, she carried those lessons with her, blending her personal experience with the technical knowledge she gained through workshops and collaboration. One afternoon, she was invited to perform at a local charity event, a gathering that aimed to support young people in need. She felt a deep sense of purpose as she prepared for the performance. Understanding that her music could serve a greater good, The venue was filled with people of all ages, some familiar with her previous performances, and others hearing her play for the first time. She felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement, feeling she had come to recognize as a sign of meaningful opportunity as she began to play. She noticed the audience's attentive expressions. Her hands moved across the keys with grace and confidence, each note carrying the emotions she wished to convey. The simple melody she started with gradually transformed into something more intricate, layered with subtle nuances that reflected her personal growth as a musician. She could feel the connection forming between herself and the listeners, a quiet understanding that music was not just entertainment, but a shared experience, capable of expressing feelings that words could not. The applause that followed her performance was heartfelt and enthusiastic. People approached her afterward, expressing admiration and gratitude for the beauty of her music. Some shared personal stories of how her performance had touched them, moved them, or even inspired them to pursue their own passions. She listened, humbled and amazed, realizing that her gift had the power to impact lives in meaningful ways. The recognition was no longer just about her skill. It was about the way she could connect with others and evoke emotion through her art. In the weeks that followed, she continued to perform and explore new opportunities. She began to experiment with composing her own pieces, inspired by her experiences, emotions, and observations of the world around her. Each composition reflected her journey, combining simplicity with depth and allowing her audience to feel the story behind the music. She discovered that creating music was not only about playing notes, but about telling a story, expressing emotions, and sharing a piece of herself with the world. Her personal life also began to change in subtle but meaningful ways. She developed friendships with other musicians, mentors, and supporters who encouraged her growth and provided guidance. She learned to navigate the challenges of public performance, including stage fright, self-doubt, and the pressures of expectations. Through it all, she remained committed to her values, understanding that authenticity and emotional connection were far more important than external validation or fame. One day, she was invited to perform at a prominent community festival. The stage was large and the audience was substantial, a mix of music lovers, families, and local dignitaries. She felt a familiar mix of nervousness and excitement as she took her place at the piano. This time, however, she felt a sense of calm and assurance, knowing that her music could speak for itself and that she had the experience to share it effectively. As she played, the simple tune she began with evolved into a complex and moving performance, full of emotion and technical finesse. The audience was captivated, responding with cheers, applause, and expressions of admiration. After the festival, she reflected on how far she had come. From the quiet hours in the cafe to performing on large stages, she had discovered the transformative power of music and the importance of courage, perseverance, and authenticity. She realized that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of skill, passion, and the willingness to take risks that created true impact. Her life had changed in ways she had never imagined. Not because she sought recognition, because she dared to share her gift with the world. She also understood that her journey was ongoing. Each performance, each opportunity, and each connection with an audience was a step toward further growth and understanding. She embraced the idea that music was a lifelong journey, one that required dedication, curiosity, and an open heart. The lessons she had learned, the importance of practicing quietly, the courage to perform despite fear, and the power of connecting with others through art, would continue to guide her in the years ahead, in the quiet moments between performances. She returned to her small keyboard, sometimes playing the simple tunes that had started her journey. These moments reminded her of where she had begun, of the patience, perseverance, and love for music that had carried her forward. She knew that her story was not just about achieving recognition or success, but about staying true to herself and her passion. The music was her constant companion, a source of joy, expression, and connection that would continue to shape her life. Through her journey, she also realized the importance of giving back and inspiring others. She began to mentor young musicians who shared her love for music, encouraging them to practice, explore their creativity, and share their own gifts with the world. She understood how powerful it could be to support others, to help them find confidence and expression through music, just as she had once been guided and encouraged. The impact of her journey extended beyond her own growth, touching the lives of others and creating a ripple effect of inspiration and hope. As time went on, her life continued to be filled with music, opportunity, and meaningful connections. She performed at larger venues, collaborated with talented artists, and explored new directions in her compositions. Yet, through all the change, she remained grounded, remembering the small cafe where her journey began and the quiet tunes that had carried her forward. She embraced her story, understanding that the combination of courage, talent, and authenticity could transform ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences.